loved ones. Once you start there, and then once you're able to have that, then you look at referrals.
It doesn't matter how much they pay you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming. I know today's 420, so you could have been somewhere else doing other things. But thank you so much for being here today. I have an awesome panel. Two most badass marketers that I know in LA. And they're going to give you guys some really golden nuggets for growing your e-commerce business and marketing in general. So today I have Max Bauman, who's the founder and CEO of Bear Power Foods. He also has two other companies. I know he recently sold one of them. Have you guys heard of Just Chill? It's a beverage company. Anyone? But yeah, Max just sold that company for millions of dollars. And yeah, awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, so he's a total badass entrepreneur. And then next we have Chris Rose, or Chris Rose.
Thank you.
He's the head of digital and retail at Guess. And he's going to be talking about all the cool things that he's doing at Guess. So to get started, can you guys give me some background on how you got started and how you got to your position right now?
Yeah, originally I never expected to be in the food and beverage industry. Honestly, I wanted to be a professional surfer. And, you know, I was traveling through an airport and I was looking left and looking right, and I just saw these mile-long security lines and LAPD writing tickets left and right. And I was like, there has to be a better way. So they were drinking these big monsters and all the Starbucks, and I was like, what about a calming drink? And that's where the idea for Just Chill, my first venture, came up. I was about 20, 21 years old, and it just was this like intense need to kind of build that up. And slowly we got traction with that. We noticed the number one expense on our P&L was also the number one point of impact, which was our area sales managers going out. So through that, I was able to start a sales force, which now has, with a $4,000 investment, about 4 years later, now we have 63 full-time people. It'll be on the Inc. 500 list. Yeah, thanks, buddy. And then, you know, just slowly but surely, I got this macro landscape working with brands like Bulletproof, Health Aid Kombucha, RX Bar. I got to see what was working, what wasn't, what consumers wanted. So now I'm doing a ketogenic meal shake called Bear, and we're going, direct to consumer, and it's just a fun new journey for me.
For me, I started in retail marketing about 2004, when e-commerce was a little bit of a different landscape than it has been over the last few years. My journey into it started at a company that sold aftermarket automotive parts. And I grew that back when you could spend 5 cents per click on head terms in Google and essentially acquire a customer for very, very cheap, if not free, out on message boards and forums. And grew that company to around $8 million in annual revenue, negotiated buy-ins with vendors and UPS shipping costs, et cetera. And then was headhunted by a company that was only 30 minutes away that did the same thing and started at the same time as me. I had heard of them, but didn't know who they were. It turns out in a weird world that I had graduated high school with the owners, and we were building our businesses at the same time. They had grown to about $24 million in the same space, but were focused mostly on e-commerce and less on the omnichannel experience at the time, because there wasn't an omnichannel experience. You had a website that supported your mom and pop store, but that was groundbreaking at the time. And at that point, I moved over to that business and spent 7.5 years building it from 24 employees and somewhere in the ballpark of $30 million up to a $200 million company, 425 employees, selling aftermarket auto parts online, strictly US and Canada. We started in social in the early days, back when it was pretty much bare and an empty place for you to go and for free get a lot of exposure. And then we were one of the first advertisers that was white glove with Facebook. Spent a lot of money and time on figuring out how to hack the algorithm when all of those changes happened. Grew a YouTube channel, and were sort of the first to go out there and really build content to show off our brand, because the product that we sold was very technical and people needed to trust the brand that they were shopping with. I exited that company after 7.5 years, and then went right into the world of retail marketing again and wanted to kind of take that e-commerce experience and get people into shopping malls and physical retailers. I collaborated with H&M and Foot Locker and a lot of companies, including Guess. And then after some time, Guess gave me a call and brought me out here to California. So I've been here about a year and a half, and I'm working mostly on all on North American retail right now. And so we're expanding into new markets, trying to collect the Gen Z audience and really focusing on that cliche experience between our physical stores and digital and how it feels like one brand and acts like one brand.
Awesome, awesome. So in 2019, when a lot of young people are trying to start their own e-commerce businesses, what do you think it takes to start a really successful e-commerce brand?
So for me, it always goes back to the product market fit, right? If you're gonna build, like there's so many founders that are so excited about their idea and they're like, this is gonna blow up, this is gonna be the best new thing. But if there's not a big enough addressable market for it, then you're gonna shoot yourself in the foot. So first you need to make for sure that in terms of price point, the market size, the actual product, that you get that component right before you even think about starting anything else. And then you can look at what your unfair advantage is, and I think every company should try and have an unfair advantage because you can start an apparel line and be like, oh, we're going to be the next Guess, but what's your competitive advantage? And so a lot of that comes back to the team and building a really strong ecosystem. We were lucky enough with this newest venture. We have the former CEO of Pop Chips on our board of advisors. We have the former VP of Revolve, a lot of really great people. So they add a lot of clout and credibility that allows us to bring in those investment dollars.
Yeah, adding to that, I think it is really important. The product market fit is a great point. And also, there are clear reasons why people shop with a brand, right? And branding is really, really important. And coming from the performance marketing side, it's difficult for me to say because I'm so focused on metrics and customer acquisition and ROI. But I really do think that there are brands, and coming into Guess now a year into it, I've seen this brand that's been around for 30 years that has stayed true to exactly who they are and haven't wavered from that, right? They're about sexy, young, adventurous and this lifestyle brand. If you can craft that while making sure that you have a competitive advantage and you have a product that really fits the market, it gives people a reason to shop with you, and that organic thirst for your product is going to make it a lot easier for every dollar that you spend.
And Chris, with you being at a large brand like Guess, what do you think it takes, and is there a process to scaling a brand?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this too is just that people focus on the details and they focus on the day-to-day and not is this a $1 million project or is this a $100 million project? Or where does it fall on the scale of priorities? So if we're gonna collaborate with an influencer, a lot of people will sit in a meeting and talk about how we're going to get this one person that has 100,000 followers to wear this shirt on this one day. It's not that meaningful. So I'd rather see brands come in that understand the long term and that I'm going to collaborate with this person now. So we're great at picking somebody that's just about at that point in their career where they're going to go somewhere, right? Camila Cabello, we've launched a lot of people. Guess has historically. I wasn't there, but Drew Barrymore, Claudia Schiffer, Paris Hilton, there's a lot of people who shot with Guess before they were really where they are today. And we found that has always been great for us. Our relationship with Jennifer Lopez is, it's 20 years at this point or 30 years at this point of working with her. And that comes from finding them at the right time. And that's how you launch a business and you grow, is by finding the people that you can collaborate with that long-term have that visibility, as opposed to the easy win today of spending $1 and getting $5 back.
Now, Max, you've raised quite some money for Better Power Foods. I think you guys raised close to $1 million. What do you think it takes to raise some money for your business? And is there a checklist for someone to know that they're ready to raise funds?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, first, when you're going back and you're looking at raising money, you have to look at, don't put yourself in the entrepreneur's shoes, put yourself in the investor's shoes. So what's the investor checklist? Is the business high margin? Do they have a successful team? And if you yourself are a first-time founder, there's a way to actually do that, and that's create a board of advisors and do the networking. But the biggest lesson that I would take away is to really start building the relationships and the network before you actually have to raise money. Because raising money is a very long, grueling process of someone saying like, okay, we're interested, let's continue the dialogue. You can have like 20 people do that and end up with 3 people investing in the company. So it gets easier. Like for me, I've had 2 successful companies before, so that expedites it. But as a first-time entrepreneur, when on my first business, it took 6 months to get the capital we needed to really, get going. So don't underestimate the time, and just really look at what's that checklist an entrepreneur is specifically going to look at to invest in your company.
And Chris, you being at a public company, working with shareholders, what do you think it takes to make investors happy?
Investors are looking for the news articles, right? And that's a shame, right? We spend a lot of time focusing on that growth, giving them that everybody expects 3% year-over-year growth. They expect store comp growth. They expect audience size growth. But they're also looking for companies that are thinking about what technology they can leverage today and in the future, and companies that are experimenting and moving fast. So if we work with a localization company to expose our inventory online and then allow you to buy it online and pick up in store and reserve it online and try it on in a fitting room, that's great. That's the stuff that they know people are wanting to interact with these days. But brands will take that too far and start to interact with something that is these AI walls in stores that everyone's really excited about, and they'll get that little stock pop that day, right? Because they announce it in their quarterly meeting. But the reality is, nobody here is walking into stores in North America and like pinching and zooming a screen trying to find out what outfit they want to try on. It's just excitement, and I think that's really short term.
Okay, so Facebook recently announced the ability to shop directly from Instagram. So you do not need to go to a website. It's not out yet. So basically, you see content and you're able to add your credit card and purchase directly. So that means you're going to be able to buy directly from content, which really shortened the sales funnel. So what role do you think content plays right now in the e-commerce space, and what role is it going to play in the future?
So content is, and this is from tons of testing over the last years. I mean, to give you a little background, we had one of the top performing Indiegogo campaigns. Ari was part of that on the Messenger side. And since then, we just had our first quarter. Content is king. Having the right content that really articulates your value proposition to the consumer. And what we found is problem solution type of videos for our particular product work well. 15 seconds, Facebook and Instagram. You can't underestimate the power of content. So I would figure out, like let's say if you're an entrepreneur and you're starting up a watch company, how is your watch better than the competitors? You have 15 seconds to tell that message, and you have to make it, quick, cool, and then have that call to action. So think about that in terms of, what you're actually solving, and then rather than just posting pictures and saying, okay, they're going to come to buy.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that you bring up a good point with the intent of the user and what the type of product you sell actually is, right? So if you have a very technical product that you need to explain, or if there are benefits that you need to explain, that's one type of content that could work really well in one market. Or for us, we might want to talk about our new sustainable line of eco denim. So we need to show the impact that that's having and the footprint that's having. There's other times where we just want to say, like, if you wear our shit, you're cool. And that is another type of content. So it really comes down to intent and what you're trying to convey. At the shopping level, I'm curious to kind of see how that translates, right? I think the more that you can talk about the product, the stronger and deeper intent to get that click and to actually get that sale you'll see. Whereas a lot of brands will, and Guess will do this too, and so a lot of fashion brands just show that iconic, aspirational lifestyle photo of somebody wearing a piece of clothing or wearing the watch, and just hope that you get the click. And I don't know that hope is going to work there.
Okay, so obviously we're in an ever-changing space with a lot of innovation around. There's like a new thing that pops up every month that you should try. How do you guys handle innovation, and do you think there's a right way or wrong way to approach innovation?
So that's a great question, right? Because there's constantly these different things that are popping up. I mean, first I would look at who their current clients are, call the clients, see what kind of results they've gotten. Reference checks don't usually work because they usually have a relationship. That's just like one keynote that I found out. The innovation that I'm excited about right now is text to order. And I've seen one client do this extremely well. Dirty Lemon. They came out with an extremely high price point. It was for charcoal, lemon water, $11 a bottle. And when I first saw this, I first saw the deck. It got passed around to one of my co-founders in the business. He ended up investing. I ended up not investing, and it was a bad mistake for me because the business did very, very well. They just secured a big chunk of money. Coca-Cola invested them. But what they call it is conversational commerce. And that's the trick, right? Is like when to adopt. If you adopt too late, then you could miss that big swing. If you adopt too early, you could end up with a dud and waste time and money setting it up. So I'd love to hear from a larger company perspective.
Yeah, I think that larger companies don't adopt quickly enough, and that smaller companies get hung up and caught up in it almost to the point of paralysis that keeps them from growing because they're not focused on the big wins, they're focused on the small wins. So yeah, I completely agree that there's a threshold that you cross where at some point, okay, now the big companies have it on the radar and they're implementing it, and that's great, but they probably missed some opportunity earlier on, whereas the smaller companies are just trying to grab pieces of technology that they can implement quickly because they don't have to worry about a 6-month development cycle and how much resources it's going to take. They have a developer that's going to do it for them on the weekend. Or it's just the scale of moving and course correcting for a publicly traded multi-billion-dollar company is always going to be less fluid than somebody that is working 24 hours a day with them and developers in Russia to be able to bang through this latest cart technology or whatever. Those types of things, I fully agree that if you wait until you have the big logos on the homepage, it's probably too late for that piece of technology. You can try it, but there's also some scenarios where that's worked really well. I give Nike so much credit because they've been working with a company called Dark Store, and Dark Store allows you to essentially house inventory in whatever MSA or whatever city you want, and then use Postmates and Uber, et cetera, to deliver these things within a few hours. So when they launch a new sneaker and it's coinciding with some big event, they can do that, and then you can have the sneaker in 2 hours on a Sunday, which is just insane, right? And I think Darkstar at this point only works with like Nike and one other brand. So there's not that massive logo thing that happened. Nike just found them and was like, let's do this. This is going to be great.
Now, are there like any marketing trends that you see right now, and do you see some that you're gonna try? Are there like any marketing trends that you tried and didn't go right?
That's a good question. I think the trends that didn't go right are more just around overspending on Facebook on ads that didn't work, and then looking back on certain ad campaigns, or maybe there were certain agencies where you just didn't have that good fit or that good mesh. In terms of trends, we just jumped into, one of my friends launched a business on the text to order side for abandoned carts called Retention Rocket. So if you guys are anyone's in the e-com space, you can check it out. And they're starting to get a lot of brands quickly. I can't speak to success or failure with it yet, but I'm definitely excited about it given the success of Dirty Lemon. And if you look across the board, everyone's on their mobile phones all day. So if they're getting used to and getting these text offers for brands, clicking through, and then maybe it was abandoned cart, all their things already filled out. They just need to press send. So I think that ultimately finding out new innovation, experimenting a little bit with that is really key.
I'm excited from the omnichannel standpoint of localized ads. So Facebook and Google have put a lot of stake in the last few years into having an objective that you can bid on to get people that are quote unquote in-store shoppers and that they've determined will have a high propensity to go to a shopping mall or go to a standalone store. In the past though, they've done a really, really shitty job of measuring this. So they've given you these metrics around store visits that are algorithmic and based on an assumption of people that have gone near your store. And how can they say that they've been to the Guest store in Glendale Galleria when there's an Express downstairs and a Foot Locker? It's been very, very loose in terms of measurement, and they've all worked pretty tirelessly over the last 5 years with AI and machine learning and tracking people's phones to the point where they're very confident in being able to say that they can, within 98% certainty, say that somebody was in your store, as long as you're keeping your Google My Business maps updated. And if we move in one space to another space in the mall, it's on us to keep that updated. But those things I'm cautiously optimistic about.
Now, are there like any marketing trends that you think are just buzzwords?
Omnichannel,
What?
localization.
Synergy.
So you get approached by like a lot of agencies that want to sell you the newest thing. How do you kind of go through that and kind of decide who to work with?
I think for me, it comes down to the team and their track record in the past. There's just a high risk of working with someone who hasn't done it before. So I usually start with a checklist of the team, what they've done, what their backgrounds were. Then I go through some of their clients, and I'll reach out directly without getting references. And then I generally get very true, honest responses. Which if you ask them for references, hey, can you give me 3 companies? Who do you think they're going to give you? The 3 best companies that they've worked with. So I think it's really critical to do your own homework before you sign up, especially with a lot of agencies where it could be upwards of over $10,000 a month. For a startup, that's a big drain. For guests, that's not a big problem, but it's still time and resources and attention for them to do it too.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before. I put very little stake into inbox messages on LinkedIn and to emails. It's just, I have meticulous inbox rules, and I have 11,500 unread messages in one inbox that is completely commercial at this point. It's all people trying to work with us. And it's to the point where I don't go in that inbox. I use strictly people that I know who say, like, have you worked with this company? Have you worked with that company? And then I look at the track record and understand a little bit about where they're at in their line of history, right? If they signed up 1 or 2 large vendors, are we going to be the first partner that they work with that they have to deal with some of the challenges that we have as a giant company with data paralysis? So yeah, a lot of it for me now is just reference. If they present at a conference and I happen to see them, and then I see them in their inbox, maybe I'll tie the name together or something, but there's just too much noise out there. So I like to find people and organically have conversations or work with friends or friends.
Now, recently, there's been a lot of talk around conversational commerce, chatbots, AI, messenger marketing. What are your thoughts on that? I know you mentioned that earlier, that you're going to do some text messaging marketing to recover cards and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts about conversational marketing or messenger marketing, and is this something that you're planning on using?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing right now is working with the right software product company, and really managing it, right? Because it can go wrong quickly. And if a customer has a bad experience in using it, if you're automating it and they're not getting their question answered, and then on your team, it's not getting transitioned to the inbox and they don't get their response within 24 hours, you could lose that customer. And they could be like, oh yeah, it's all bot run and they weren't answering my questions. So that's the last thing you want to do. So I think the key is good product or software that you're using. And then if you're working with an agency, good team with a track record behind it for managing that. And then on your team internally, who's going to be the liaison to oversee that?
Yeah, I echo that. I think it's about the partner and the technology, and then building it for the right reasons and being very clear about what your bot does and doesn't do. So making sure that people aren't trying to interact with it in a way that they're going to be disappointed or confused, and probably going after low-hanging fruit first, things like order tracking, et cetera, that people can kind of understand and probably have interacted with something like that in the near history.
So you've talked a little bit about omni-channel, and I've talked to a few brands about omni-channel, and it's always scary, right? Because you can't manage all these different channels like social, email, all these different channels that, customers are reaching out to you on these channels. So do you hire 100 people to sit around and respond to messages on these channels? Like if one channel is working well, for example, Facebook is working well, should you go to YouTube and stuff like that? What's the best way to handle going omni-channel? And do you think it's right for every brand?
When I speak to omnichannel, I typically am speaking more so in terms of physical retail and digital retail and having an e-commerce store and then a store footprint. That being said, to answer how that relates to your question, I think that for us, empowering the retail store and the field team to be able to deal with things like reviews and questions from customers at the local level. If somebody's reaching out to guests and saying, I had a great experience or a terrible experience in Scottsdale, Arizona, I need somebody locally to be able to sort of take the charge on that, whether it's a commercial area manager that manages a few stores there, or a store manager of that particular footprint. We also obviously have like a call center, and that call center works to answer Facebook reviews and messages and Instagram DMs, etc. So yeah, when you're a company that's large enough, you probably take that stuff in house, especially to be able to control what you're saying. And there's a lot of brand intricacies there. But I've had experience even in the startup level of trying to outsource that with a company called Needle in their early days that staffed your live chat on your website with people who are your best customers, and that works pretty well at that time period. It worked pretty well, and then over time it starts to make sense to hire it in-house.
For Bird Power Foods, are you guys thinking about going omni-channel? I know you've ran campaigns on Facebook. Are you guys planning on expanding to like YouTube or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, for us right now, you need money to test, right? So for us, we're looking at actually going back to what I was saying earlier. We're doing a little shift with the product innovation, and then we're looking across different people that are in our category where they're getting the best results and focusing more on that. We don't have the budget to be like, okay, let's go here, 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 and here and see if it works. So I think you find your bread and butter, focus on that, build up that, and then once you get that channel at some certain maturity, let's say right now it's Google AdWords, Facebook, Instagram, and Klaviyo. And then once you start seeing a lot of success, then okay, let's add some in.
And Chris, I know Guess has been doing some pop-up events. What's kind of like your strategy behind that, and what are you looking to get out of bringing people together at these Guess stores?
Yeah, there's different levels for us of the physical activations, the pop-ups, whatever you want to call them. I think that the ones in store for us are brand moments and ways for us to bring in our best shoppers and sort of celebrate and appreciate them. So everything from the smallest version of that is just hosting your best 10 shoppers for brunch at your store that are like high value VIPs. Call them in, give them a great deal, hook them up with brunch, have a DJ, have cocktails, and literally serve your best customers. I think that we have a step up from that, which is doing some in-store event where you have a DJ and you're sort of inviting everyone to join you, not just your best customers, and maybe you have some sort of activity or interaction like a customization station and screen printing. A level up from that is we'll do in-store meet and greets with celebrities, right? We had a Los Angeles rapper named Fora who launched Guess Originals with us, which is a sort of a vintage 90s throwback line. And we did an in-store meet and greet with his fans a couple weekends ago in Glendale, all the way up to massive launches where we'll build a small village in our parking lot in lot 5, and then we'll have a half pipe and Sean Wotherspoon and Sheck West performs, and it's a big deal. It really depends on what the scale is and whether it's our Guess mainline brand, right? Guess Jeans USA is something that Nikolai Marciano, who's the founder's son, is working on specifically, and he'll go out and try to sort of disrupt what Guess is doing by bringing in those ridiculous activations, and it works incredibly well. For me, I'm focused on Guess, and when you walk by a Guess store, and even if you're not a Guess customer, you're like, who's this guy in here that's like signing autographs, and there's a massive line of 800 people trying to get into the store. That's just a cool moment for Southern California to see, and then we just sort of do that across the areas that make the most sense to us.
Are there any brands that you admire or envy right now?
I really like how Bulletproof came to market. They built a very solid community, and they did it through podcasting before podcasting was way blown up. So there's always the certain timing, right? But they had the perfect timing, and they went really deep into biohacking and nutrition. They built up this insane community. So when they started launching products, it was just like the adoption was incredible. And we're working with them on my second company, Basemakers, the sales company. We have about 63 sales people across the nation. They're moving great at retail too. So it's translated from their online sales to their retail sales. If you actually type in energy drink, I think their MCT oils in the top 5 on energy drink. I don't know why it's listed under there, but it's one of the brands that I've seen like, okay, this was a knockout of the park. So figuring out, let's say if you're starting a brand, what is your true brand message, and what's the ultimate community around that, and how can you foster a unique conversation around that community to build that up and then go into a launch from that.
I think Revolve's doing a really nice job. Revolve has been growing really quickly and doing it the right ways. I think there's a few other brands that are. I'm thinking fashion, just because that's where I'm the world that I'm in right now. The Real is doing incredible things. Revolve's doing incredible things. Misguided. There's a lot of brands that have come in and they're like, we're going to online. We're going to offer a certain aesthetic, and we're going to use social to grow our channels. And then eventually we're going to have a flagship store. This is Bonobos and Warby Parker 8 years ago, and it's working really well.
No, you guys are obviously very busy. I had to almost sell my leg and my arm to get this guy here today.
That's not true.
So what in this like busy world, like what hobbies keep you guys sane?
Surfing whenever I can. You want to be a pro surfer, that didn't work out, so I got to get in the water sometime.
Yeah, I mean, I like to travel. It's funny, I like to travel when it's not for work. I actually like traveling for work, but it's nice to be able to go and enjoy something as opposed to, touch down in Scottsdale, head to Fashion Valley, make sure that we're set up for an event, go back to the hotel, sleep, wake up, go to the event, and then, back to LAX or Burbank the next day. That isn't exciting to me, whereas being able to go and actually like enjoy some time there, golfing. I love going down to San Diego and spending the weekend hiking and golfing and having a few moments of disconnected world.
Awesome. So now we have like about 5 minutes, so I'm going to open it up to the audience. If you have a question, please raise your hand.
There's two ways there, right? There's reactive and proactive. So reactive, we're working with a couple companies. One of them, I'll give you an example, is Yext. And Yext out of New York has done a great job of being able to help us take ownership of all of our listings and update hours, et cetera, but then also funnel things like reviews and feedback to us. So Yext has been a great partner with guests now for almost 3 years. And I visit them as frequently as possible, and they come out here to LA and we talk about what betas they have for events because of the in-store event component. And then we're currently white label working with a company, a partner who's building a technology for us that exists in the UK right now and is doing really well there, that you can essentially get styling advice from an in-store associate. So the in-store associate can go with FaceTime or take photos, style something for you, and you can interact via text message and get that level of customized and personalized support. We work with a company called Snap and Style. Snap and Style allows us to do that online. So that's all on the proactive side so that we can actually be able to talk to our e-commerce customers. And then we always are going to recommend that they go to a local store. But when it gets down to the reactive side and you're trying to get a store associate to respond to a complaint or somebody that's happy and just wants to know what, when they can come in next and visit the person that they like working with, that happens usually out of the X platform. Yeah, we love that stuff. It's working and it's doing wonders for the brand. I think about 3 or 4 years ago at this point, we started working with people like A$AP Rocky on the influencer and celebrity side, and then realized really quickly that guests needed a disruption. We were catering to the same customer, what we call our heritage customer, for the last 30 years, who grew up in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s when Guess was, J-Lo was Jenny from the block still. She's not anymore. She's 50 and has a residency in Las Vegas. Looks incredible, don't get me wrong, but just that's not, that customer is now 17-year-old male, 21-year-old female in high school, college, and they just don't resonate with that. So working with A$AP Rocky, Camila Cabello, J Balvin this year, those have been the things that have really taken the brand further. And then on the streetwear side of things, collaborating with Chinatown Market and these up-and-coming streetwear brands like Places and Faces, Nikolai has done a great job of positioning ourselves with people that it's really authentic. Like, we don't go to Places and Faces and say like, hey, we're this giant Guess brand and you're this cool small brand. It would be kind of cool and ironic if we worked together. That's not how it works. It's like Nikolai really knows these people. He's out in the fashion world working with them and then coming up with great collaborations that just are great moments for the brand. And it really is that buzzword of like authenticity, and it's an authentic moment. We're not trying to be cool. We're just hanging out with cool people, and like that would be awesome if we just like stitched those things together and made a shirt out of it, and then sold 10 of them for no reason.
All right, we'll take one more question. All right, I guess we can wrap up. Thank you guys so much for being here. Please give a round of applause for Chris Rose and Matt.
Thank you, guys.